everyone would please rise in body and spirit, and we will sing this gathering song 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
As we light the chalice, we have a reading by Kimberly Ann Tomzak Carlson. We are a people of memory. As inheritors of our ancestors' legacy, we hold their stories tenderly, gleaning wisdom from diverse journeys, united in hope for the future. Guide us to trust and love as we kindle this flame together.
Our first reading today is by Heather K. Daniels, This Sacred Thread. They once dwelled among us, the people of memory, they who knew us, they who taught us, they who hurt us, they who loved us. They touch our lives time and again through their presence and their absence, through familiar scents and favorite songs, through old stories and renewed sorrow. As the earth turns and leaves fall, we reach back to renew the bonds between us. With hearts and hands open, we hold on to love, ever stronger than death. We reach back in gratitude and understanding. Without our time together, the pain and the joy, we would never be who we are today. We would have little to pass on to ourselves. Without fear, without thanksgiving, and with hope for all that awaits, we remember those who have gone before. We honor the circle of life and death and our place within this sacred thread.
Good morning. I'm Edie Holder, and I'd like to welcome everyone here and everyone who's listening online to St. John's Unitarian Universalist Church. We welcome young and old, fat and thin, and whatever other adjectives you would like to use to describe yourself all, because we are a very diverse group. We honor and value our diversity. I want to welcome visitors and invite you to stop by the welcoming table and afterwards join us for refreshments and conversation in Kroll Pfeiffer, which is across from Hanley. Today's service, because we are a diverse group and we are non-creedal, and so there's a diversity of beliefs among you. Today we're going to celebrate Samhain, which is the ancient Celtic day for honoring the dead, as well as the neo-pagan day for the same. And I want to leave you with a quotation. 100 years ago, the Unitarians put out a quotations from the wayside, in which they gathered a group of thoughtful quotes, which they sent out, and people of many different churches would put them on their welcoming boards. They put quote for the week or for the month, a thoughtful quote, and here's one from the wayside 100 years ago, and it's by Rossiter W. Raymond, Death is only a horizon, and horizon is nothing save the limit of our sight. Again, welcome.
If everybody could stand as they are able and join us in hymn number 96, I Cannot Think of Them as Dead.
I cannot think of them as dead who walk with
Please speak with me our shared affirmation. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands. And now we have time for all ages.
Good morning. My kids and I read a lot of fantasy. There are portals and doorways all over those books. And that's, one of the things we like about fantasy is that we can imagine being in a place that we do not know how to get to from here. Something, better, something different. We can kind of wave our hands and say, well, there's this door, and it gets us there. Or maybe it's a wardrobe. Or maybe it's a blue police box. Of course, it's Samhain, and this is, regarded as this is a time for doorways. It's a time when, the barriers between here and elsewhere break down. My kids and I call this spooky season. We like it very much. And spooky for us mostly is fun, but there's also an uneasiness in it. And when I think about, what we're not I don't think what my kids and I are necessarily afraid of most of the time is not something coming to get us. It's that fear of crossing over there and being lost, or our loved ones being lost to us. And that fear is very, very real. We get lost all the time, and we lose things all the time. We wake up one day and find ourselves in an entirely new universe without the things we love, or just in a world that makes no sense to us. Every day we open our front door onto a new world because everything is constantly changing. Sometimes it feels like it's always for the worse. You know, a time like now, let's us stop and maybe try to grapple with that. Maybe try to grapple with new worlds opening up to us that may seem filled with darkness. Maybe we think about what we have left behind and map the things we have lost and grieve them. And maybe we do that and then we walk through the darkness, carrying forward because that's all we can do. We know that's how it works sometimes. We just push forward, letting where we have been and what we have loved guide us forward as the darkness grows around us. We do that, and the thing is, sometimes when we're doing that, we don't realize when the light is growing until we turn back and look. Sometimes we look back and we realize that the past is actually darker than where we are now. I mean, you know, the astronomical calendar, we know what's going to happen. We know when, you know, the days are going to start getting longer. But in other areas, we don't know where that turning point is. And sometimes we don't know that we've passed it until we turn around and realize that we passed through that doorway. We're in that world that we couldn't have imagined. That's the funny things about magical portals. It can be just as hard to imagine where we were as where we would like to go. In some ways, that's just the nature of existence, of our brains. You know, we are in the now. And in many ways, that's wonderful. But it's worth taking the time to mark the thresholds, partly so that we don't get lost in that darkness, but partly so that we realize those times when we are found.
Thank you, Ashley. It's a tradition at St. John's to take a few minutes to recognize and honor our joys, our concerns, and our sorrows by placing a stone from the bowl and putting it into the sand. If you would like your joy or concern read, please write it down and leave it on the table, and I'll read it when we're all through. For those visiting with us online, you can put them in the chat, and the ushers will bring them to me. We have a couple of joys and sorrows that we'd like to share. From online, a joy that Ashley is back to share her wisdom and insights with us again. And then from Shannon Tubb, my best friend's dad, Charlie Fowler, is in hospice as of Friday with a week estimated remaining. I have also placed an additional stone for those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken. May we hold in our thoughts and hearts the joy, the concern, and the sorrow felt among those present today and throughout the world. May all find peace in moving forward.
So this is the time when we are going to sing the children downstairs for our own separate programming. But what we've been doing the last few weeks is we've been lighting our own flame from the chalice up here to carry with us. And Jude is going to help me do that.
All right, choir, come on up. So I just want to say something. See the words up there. For the next couple months, you guys are going to hear a lot of Latin because, we've chosen a bunch of Latin pieces because they're fun to sing. At least we think so. But first, this piece is very challenging, and we've chosen a lot of challenging music between now and the end of the year because we like challenging ourselves. So one, I would invite anyone who wants to come and sing with us, come and practice and sing. And if you can't make Thursdays, we'll make it work because more voices is always better, especially tenors and basses. We love them especially a lot. I also want to thank Peng Chang because often we come up here, we sing, and everybody goes, "The choir was amazing." And without Peng Chang's support and playing, it would not be quite so amazing. So thank you, Peng Chang. May this song somehow reach into your soul and connect you with whatever it is that you see beyond that horizon or that you don't see beyond that horizon, whatever you think may be beyond that horizon, those that have already crossed that horizon or are no longer in our sight. And may that light shine upon them eternally. Lux aeterna.
Good morning. I want to start by extending a personal thank you to everyone who has come today and who has joined us online. And an additional thank you to the staff and everybody else who has helped us put together this service and who has answered my many, many questions. It is our honor to be able to present this service to you today. I was asked several months ago to join the worship roundtable discussions, and that was because I was hoping to get Earth Spirit relaunched and more active in the congregation. At one of the meetings, Reverend Mitra asked me if I would be willing to do the sermon today. She kind of caught me off guard, and I think I said yes too fast. But I'm not one of those people who is comfortable standing in front of a group of people and talking. But I got to thinking about it, and I think that I thought that it would be a fantastic idea for Earth Spirit to reintroduce themselves or ourselves to the congregation by participating in the service. So here we are. In between, like I said, in between then and now, we have been relaunching Earth Spirit, and we hope to do more for the congregation here at service and in other ways. Today's service will be, as you can probably tell, a little bit different from our normal service. We have included familiar elements from the service, the order of service, things that might be considered traditional here at St. John's, but we've also added a distinct seasonal or pagan twist to them. You know, if you ask 10 people what it means to be pagan, you're probably going to get at least 10 different responses. There's a wide range of groups and individuals in the global pagan community with varying beliefs and practices. We hope to begin exploring some of these and sharing our faiths with you in today's service and as we evolve as a group. It's my personal belief that only by exploring different paths and ways of relating to the world can we truly grow as individuals and as a community. Samhain, which is tomorrow evening and coincides with our Halloween, is an important festival in the pagan calendar. It's the most important Sabbat or holy day and the new year for many of us. The word Samhain is Irish Gaelic for the month of November. In Scottish Gaelic, it means All Hallows. Most people in the US, though, translate it as summer's end. In Celtic traditions, it marks the final harvest festival, the end of the cycle of life, the point of decay and death, and the beginning of winter. It is also believed to be the time when the veil separating the living and the dead is the thinnest. It's a time for remembering those who have passed or transitioned and welcome them into our lives for communion. Thank you again for joining and celebrating with us, and have a blessed Samhain. Our invocation today is a short piece written by Andrea Hawkins Camper entitled United by Story and Bound by Love. Gather we now into this space, this time when the wheel turns and the veil shatters. Gather we now to remember, to grieve, to prophesy, to complete our harvests before the long dark comes. Gather we now to tell the old stories and sing the old songs, to be as we have always been, the voice of our people eternal. Gather we now to celebrate that which was, that which is, and that which will be. Gather we now, as we have always done, united by story and bound by love. I'm going to ask Earth Spirit folks to go ahead and prepare for the ritual. Today's ritual is an ancestor communion ritual adapted from a ritual that was written by John Beckett. John Beckett is a Druid and was a former board member of CUPS, which is our national UU pagan organization.
Let us now invite our ancestors to join in our service. Fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers, ancestors we knew in this life, we invite you to our service. We thank you for giving us life, for caring for us when we were young and helpless, and for teaching us to stand on our own. We remember you at your best. If there is an ancestor you would remember, call their name now, silently or aloud. Beloved ancestors, accept this offering of food and drink, given with honor and with love.
Great, great, great grandparents, ancestors whose names are lost to us, we invite you to our service. We live in times very different from yours, but we are not so very different, and a part of you lives on in us. Think now of that ancestor, named or unnamed, who first crossed the great ocean, who survived war and plague and famine, who first learned the skills that would create civilization. Remember them now. Beloved ancestors, accept this offering of food and drink, given with honor and with love.
Ancestors of spirit, friends, and animal companions who have passed, we invite you to our service. We do not carry your blood, but we carry your spirit, your thoughts, your ideas, your dreams. We thank you for inspiring and enlightening us, and for founding and creating the traditions and institutions that mean so much to us. As Unitarian Universalists, we remember our spiritual ancestors, Servetus, David, Channing, Emerson, Brown, McGee, Murray, Ballou, and Carter. As St. John's UUs, we remember the Reverends Zeslin, Meyer, Kroll, Eisenlohr, Kroll-Pfeiffer, and all the other unnamed professional and lay ministers that served our congregations over the years. If there's a spiritual ancestor you would remember, call their name now, silently or aloud. Beloved ancestors, accept this offering of food and drink, given with honor and love.
Ancestors most ancient, you who share few of our genes, you who lived on a very different earth, an earth we can't even now imagine, we invite you to our service. We thank you for surviving under most difficult circumstances. Ancestors of our origin, long extinct mammals and even older vertebrates, smaller and simpler creatures stretching back to the first life. Sometimes we struggle to see ourselves in you, but without you, we would not be. Remember these most ancient ancestors, and remember that some of them are also the ancestors of other species alive today. When St. Francis called the wolf his brother, He had no way of knowing just how right he was. Beloved ancestors, accept this offering of food and drink given with honor and with love.
Let us now honor our ancestors with an offering of music. Please stand as you are able and join us in hymn 1051, We Are, in the Teal hymnal.
Ancestors we knew in life, ancestors whose names we know not, ancestors of spirit, and ancestors most ancient, we thank you for attending our service and blessing us with your presence. May there be peace and love between us now and forever.
Now is the time during our service where we do our offertory. Please give as you are able. Ushers, you want to come forward? Thank you.
This is the prayer for the unknown dead on Samhain, written by Reverend Gina Pond. We pray for those who die unknown, the old ones who die alone in their bed. We see you, the neglected and abused. We see you, the outcast who are pushed out through no fault of their own. We see you, the ones who are mentally ill and the neurodivergent. We see you, the poor, the hungry, the refugee. We see you, the ones who are killed because of race, religion, identity. We see you, the ones who suffered in silence without a voice. We see you. We see you all, the ones who died without a name, without family, without acknowledgement. We light these candles for you because we see you. We see you and honor you as our own beloved dead.
In 1996, I was privileged to receive an invitation to a group retreat in Poland at Auschwitz and Birkenau. The group was sponsored by the Zen Peacemakers in New York and run by Bernie Glassman, who was a passionate pioneer in the American Zen movement and a teacher of socially engaged Buddhism. This retreat, the first of its kind, was designed to help participants bear witness to the suffering that so many had endured at the camps. There were 150 of us at this retreat. We were Jewish and Buddhist, Christian and Muslim, agnostic and atheist. Every night we spent at Auschwitz in the cold rooms of the building that had received the many who would never return home. And we woke early in the morning to nearby church bells. After a minimal breakfast, we walked the 1.5 miles to Birkenau along a twisting rural road through the small towns of Auschwitz and Brzezinka. It was November, over Thanksgiving, and bitter cold. The streets were covered with ice and snow. We spent the next 8 hours outdoors, sitting in the snow or walking, chanting the names of those who had died and meditating on the horror humans are capable of inflicting on one another. We also spent some time at the back of the camp, between the two crematoriums, gathered in a large circle to recite Kaddish, sing lullabies, and join the rabbi, priests, nuns, and imam in the prayers of their traditions. We lined the upper perimeter of the undressing rooms and joined in a circle below and sang Jewish folk songs. In the crematorium, we remained silent and walked back to Auschwitz in the dark, quiet and subdued. Back at Auschwitz, we gathered in the auditorium and heard stories by families of those who had died there, but also from families of SS members. Someone would blow the shofar in the distance out by the wall where the prisoners were executed. We watched films, sat quietly, and shared personal experiences. It took me a long time to write about those 9 days, but when I did, the published essay, which I had entitled Singing at Auschwitz, received a mostly positive response. One person, though, it was on Twitter, I think, responded with just one word: disgusting. That individual, and others I have since learned, didn't believe it was appropriate to talk about death in such a horrible time in our world's history with anything less than a deep and somber attitude. Singing was disrespectful. Had this person actually read the essay, he probably would have been appalled to read that there was also dancing. Yeah, dancing. Joyful dancing. Before returning to our rooms in the evening, we gathered in the lobby just outside the auditorium, singing and dancing the hora, led by the rabbi. It was both emotional release and a truly joyous few moments at the end of a day that had been difficult and draining. What does it mean to celebrate life while also honoring death? And why is this time of year an especially appropriate time to explore this? The ancient Celts divided the year into lighter and darker halves. This time of year, which was called Samhain and occurred on the 31st of the month, lasting about 3 days, was seen as a liminal or a kind of in-between time. It was a transition period between summer and winter, belonging to neither. Liminal time and space were critical to the Celts, and many important events were held then. Kings were inaugurated, debts were settled, the crop was harvested. Samhain was a period outside of time, and the rules that governed the living and the spirit worlds didn't apply. Both could move in and out of the other, and many rituals and practices were designed to protect the living from spirits they thought were evil. Today, many pagans honor that time, welcoming our ancestors back into our presence and celebrating them while repurposing some of the ancient customs. My personal belief is that there are also places where that sense of time is suspended, and there is this merging of those two worlds. Sacred places, if you will. Auschwitz, but more specifically Birkenau, demonstrated that for me for the first time. There was a palpable presence there, one that was heavy and thick. On retreat, we honored those who had died by saying their names, by reading about and listening to their stories of their lives before the camps, by singing the songs of their spiritual tradition with the same joy and abandon they must also have had in life. We lit candles and prayed to their God, and we recognized and honored their suffering and their passing by living in very small ways how they were forced to live. We also walked in meditation and we listened. In many cultures, in our own culture, death is still a taboo topic in many circles. Often when it's discussed, it's done in hushed tones behind closed doors. Funerals are solemn affairs. Some cultures, though, celebrate a loved one's passing. In Bali, funerals are filled with music and dance, and the caskets are colorful, often depicting animals. In Ghana, care is taken to create fantasy coffins, depicting the livelihood of something, or something important to the deceased. Pallbearers wear brightly colored clothes, and funerals are often an all-day affair with feasting and music and dance. Today, we've invited our ancestors into this space to join us in communion. How you interpret that will depend on your personal beliefs about death. St. Johners, with a diverse range of beliefs and non-belief in spirit, likely also have a wide range of ideas about death. The diversity in beliefs among pagans about what happens at and after death is not different from other spiritual communities. What we hold in common, though, is the belief that this existence is cyclical. Rather than view death as an ending, most modern pagans view it simply as a station or waypoint in the journey. But even within that common belief, there are and have been countless ideas about what those stages look like. Ancient Egyptians believed that the spirit, or the ka, lived on after death, and they often made grand preparations for both body and spirit, building elaborate tombs for the wealthy and burying everyone with food, clothes, and weapons for use in the afterlife. In later eras, those beliefs evolved into something that looked a little like Christianity's beliefs. At death, it was thought that a person's heart was weighed against the feather of Mayat, a symbol of truth and balance, and that individual was guided to the appropriate level of the underworld, dependent on whether they had a heavy heart or one as light as Mayat's feather. Even within the belief that life is cyclical, there is a wide range of ideas about how that plays out. Some believe that when we die, we are reincarnated either immediately, our essence transferred into that of a newborn, or over time. Others believe that the soul goes on to live in a non-physical realm for eternity. Still others see the afterlife as similar to the Christian notions of heaven and hell, and some view that period after death as similar to that as before birth, a sort of quiet non-being. I've struggled from the time I was very young with that question about what happens after we die, as I'm sure others have and continue to do. I grew up at another St. John's across the river, St. John's United Church of Christ, and was then introduced to Buddhism in my early 20s. Later, when I was nearly 40, I came here to join Earth Spirit. The different traditions offered a variety of ways to look at death, and I incorporated some of each into my own belief system. Paganism, though, showed me a view of the world that incorporates life and death, summer and winter, grief and joy, anger and happiness, all in a continuous cycle. Buddhism reinforced that arising and passing away of all things, as well as the impermanence of everything. When I started doing energy work with animals, though, it all came together for me. I'd been studying the science of energy, how it transforms and is never destroyed. I learned to better sense energy fields, and I began to see, in some cases literally, that everything is energy. It occurred to me that if we are energy at our essence, and if energy is neither created nor destroyed, but rather transformed, then at death, we are literally not gone. As I once heard someone say, we're not gone, we're just a little less orderly. Whether you believe the welcoming of our ancestors here today is a symbolic gesture, or you truly believe we have summoned the energies of those beloved dead, this season can be a time to revisit our relationship with the light and the dark, and to consider that the end of this life need not mean the end of the cycle. We are, in many ways, like the leaves of the trees in the fall. Every year, they grow fully beneath the sun, enjoy the days of summer, then gradually lose their vitality, change color, wither, and die, dropping to the ground to nourish future generations. Think about ways that you can celebrate life right here and right now, how you can honor the cycle of living and dying, and why you might want to do that. How you can, be present in all you do. Remember the stories and lessons from those who are gone. Learn from them and pass them on to your children. Grieve those who have passed, but remember to honor them and your connection to them. This year, when you dress your kids in costumes and go out for trick-or-treating, or you greet monsters and ghosts and witches at the door with a bowl full of candy, consider the space between the light and the dark, and maybe think about inviting an ancestor along. How to do that? Say their names, tell their stories, and sing their songs.
Please join me in responsive reading 720. We remember them. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them.
In the blowing of wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them.
In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them.
In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them.
In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them.
In the beginning of the year and in its ends, we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them.
When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them.
So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
Thank you. Well, I made a mistake because we've been doing announcements at the end, and I was supposed to do announcements at the beginning, and I failed. So now if I can find that announcement that was here, I will read it. All right. Well, there's other announcements in your bulletin. Please note something about our RE, our Education for our Youth and Children, and also the men's group is having a gathering next week. But this announcement is called UU the Vote. Write a postcard, protect abortion access. On November 8th, Kentucky voters will decide on a constitutional amendment that would ban abortion in all cases, no exceptions. Please urge all Kentuckians to vote no on Amendment 2. Stop by the UU the Vote table this Sunday during coffee hour to write postcards. You do not have to live in Kentucky to participate in this quick, meaningful action. Also, if you need a voting guide for Kentucky races, contact Wanda, who's here somewhere. There she is, who can email you the links. Sorry, Wanda. Now, join me for our last hymn, which is number 412, Let Hope and Sorrow Now Unite.
This is a reading from Allison Ehrman. Without darkness, there cannot be light. Without death, there cannot be life. Without silence, there cannot be music. Without sorrow, there cannot be joy. Let the darkness inspire us to be radiantly alive. So mote it be.
Go in peace and love for all beings, for those who have passed and those here now. Feel your connection to the earth in every step. Allow the air to fill your whole being. Respect the power of the fire within and without. Drink with gratitude the healing water of the earth. And hold close the spirit of those who have gone before, and closer still that of those who now share this life.